It's Jay. Welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. So it's Seat of the Pants Radio here. We'll see what we come up with for the second half of our program. But we do have the first half taken care of. I spent some time going up 75 to the Loop Square Meat Processing Plant, the tribal enterprise up there. Wanted to get an idea on how they were doing and what the place was like. So we had an interesting chat with Trent Kissy and a little look around the place. So we thought we would be sharing that with you today. And so here we go, Loop Square. Okay, now let's get a description of the plant.
Okay, so we've got about a 25,000 square foot facility here. It's got a slaughter floor in the back. We've got a separate wing where we would receive deer during deer season, and we'll take deer during deer season. It's got its own processing room and its own packaging room and its own smoker so that there's no crossover, its own coolers and freezers. And then we've got the processing floor on the back. We've got the big carcass cooler, which will hold up to 125, 130 head of beef. So obviously pig's a lot smaller. It'll hold significantly more of those. And then the processing floor, which we stepped out on, as you can see, it's got all the state-of-the-art equipment. We've got 7 smoke truck capacities, so we can just smoke a ton of product, cook a ton of product. Most of it is automated or is able to be automated. So a lot of it's computerized in terms of the cooking temperatures and times and all that stuff. There's a lot of science and technique that goes into doing it well and doing it at scale. And so those are some of the things we have in there. The big kettle, which does big batches of broths or stocks or soups or salsas or things like that, chilies. And then we've got several different types of packaging equipment, the roll stock machine, we've got the hand wrapping station and the regular retail weigh scale where you could put it in like the foam trays. We have that as well. And then the vacuum chambers we have also that we walk past on the way out. And then we have the test kitchen here across from us and a few offices, which USDA will have one of these offices. And then the retail space here out front. And so that's the place that most folks see come to the retail space. So that's kind of our best foot. We try to put that best foot forward, and people seem to love coming in, and they love to stay and chat, and we appreciate that.
I love to be around that test kitchen when you're checking out product.
Hey, we'll let you know. We'll let you know next time we crank something out of there.
Okay, now, were you in the initial discussions for this idea?
Yeah, so I think it's something that probably has been discussed several times throughout the history of the nation, as we've sort of grown into the economic, kind of the economy that we're in right now, where we're looking for new enterprises and things like that. I think it's something that the nation's talked about for a long time. I've been here for 5 or 6 years now, and we've talked about it several times in that time. So yeah, I was involved in the discussions from that point on. Not saying they didn't occur before then, but when the CARES funding came through and we got sort of serious about it, then I've been involved from sort of the get-go.
What was the major factor in getting the go-ahead to do this, saying this makes sense, it probably will make some money, let's go with it? What was that factor?
I think there were a lot of things at play. I think that it's something that, like I said, the nation has been, we have had a cattle herd for a long time, and I think it's something that we've always sort of thought would be nice in the future, would be able to take the stuff that we're raising and, feed our own people in our own communities with that. We knew that we were going to have to scale up some on the ranch side to do that, and so, there were lots of moving parts there. I think the fact that, with COVID, when the food shortages hit, when all you could go to the grocery store and couldn't find anything, I think that really made it real for a lot of folks, and not just here at the nation, across the United States. We've sort of gotten away from this model of local food when it comes to our meat. In a lot of ways, we have the 4 major packers. You hear a lot about that. If you're interested in that sort of thing, you hear a lot about, the Cargills, Tyson's, National Beef, those JBS, those large plants that do, the lion's share by a long shot of the protein product in the United States. That's beef, pork, and chicken, all of it. It's just just 4 folks primarily that own and do all that. And so when those places are far away from you and the shortages start to happen, it gets real at home real quick. And so I think, going to the grocery store and not being able to buy hamburger meat, put that sort of on the forefront of people's minds. And so we already have a lot of food desert areas within the reservation. On the USDA website, they have all that data available that shows you the distance to and from a grocery store from wherever you live, and low income and low access areas is kind of how they overlay those two things. So if it's a low income area and you have low access, so maybe it's 10 miles, 20 miles, 30 miles, 45 or more miles to a grocery store, you have a problem. If you can't get fresh food, you can't get good food, then it affects a lot of outcomes, right? I mean, it affects childhood development, it affects our overall health and well-being. So there's a lot of things that, we say food desert and we talk about food deserts, but then the reality of that is it impacts every area of our lives. It affects our academic outcomes for our kids and their livelihoods and our life expectancies and everything. So, of course, economically it affects us because healthcare is very expensive, both for the taxpayer and for the individual that's going through it. So there's just a lot of systems that are strained by the food economy. And so whenever COVID happened, we started to sort of think about that. It just sort of seemed like a perfect opportunity for us to capitalize.
Now, you mentioned, what do you call them, the Big Four. Now, it seems to me like weren't they the ones that got hit by when the Russians had hacked their computers and knocked them offline? I mean, were they the ones that had temporarily shut down?
There have been a lot of things like that. There have been a couple of big plant fires that have happened in the past couple years. There have been, of course, when COVID first hit, and a lot of those plants had a large portion of their employees out with COVID, and so they were impacted. Those, number one, they're typically staying a bunch of people in a little bitty room or in a little bitty area. It's a production line, so you may have 10 or 12 people working on one little conveyor belt. At the time when the virus first hit, we didn't know a lot about its transmissibility, so we didn't know whether that was impacting our food or not. But we knew that folks that were working next to each other were getting sick a lot, and so a lot of plants shut down for short or long periods of time. Of course, you had the supply chain issues that hit everyone, just like it hit the meat plants. It hit them as well. They couldn't get stuff packaged, couldn't get stuff shipped, couldn't buy product for a while. I mean, you just had every way that you could possibly jam up the food system happened, and because it was concentrated with those Big Four in a lot of ways, the ripple effects were pretty quickly spread throughout the country.
How did that affect you? I mean, did you feel the impacts from the lack of transportation of supply, computer hackups? I mean, how did it affect you?
So here at the plant, we were pretty fortunate to miss sort of the first wave, but then as we started going on through construction, we did see some supply chain issues, and we didn't have anything that held us up permanently, but we did have some things that delayed, various aspects of the construction. And even still, there's a lot of these units now that we've gone kind of through COVID and through the different waves. Of course, now we have the war in Ukraine, and there are some of the parts, like for example, on our HVAC systems that are manufactured in Ukraine, and so you wouldn't have even thought about that 6 months ago, but now that there's a war in Ukraine, you're like, oh goodness, I wonder what, hopefully if something goes out, we're able to still get it. But thankfully we're a new facility, and so we haven't had a whole lot of those warranty issues. But it's something that impacts, it impacts everyday Americans all the time, and here on the reservation is no different. We trying to build things or trying to purchase things or trying to, even just getting things shipped that you can get a hold of easily, the cost of fuel and the cost of transportation and the cost of labor at those places where they maybe had a lot of folks that went out due to COVID or were laid off, and then they couldn't hire those back. So there's a lot going on at the macro level that really affects us on the micro level.
So it's amazing then to think that war in Ukraine is affecting what you do here.
Right, absolutely. And you hear a lot in the news about food shortages, but what they kind of are leaning towards in those discussions is the fact that it's planting time right now over there. So there's a lot of grain grown in Ukraine and Russia, and it's supposed to be being planted this time of year. And so some of the farmers over there are still trying, but even if they get it in the ground, the infrastructure is being pounded all the time, and so it's difficult to see to imagine what it's going to look like here in 6-8 months. So I don't think we're out of the woods in terms of things that could impact us in the future, but like I said, we've got a great team, and the nation has proven that they'll rise to the challenge. When those resources are short or when things become challenging, the nation works to make sure that they're taking care of their own citizens and also the community around us. I think the nation's proven that, and lots of tribal nations in Oklahoma have proven that, and so it's great to be a part of. It's really exciting. It's a great time to work in Indian country and get to do this type of work. you mentioned earlier how everybody sort of, knows their job and is doing their job and is really busy. I think this has sort of renewed a little bit of pride in our work and seeing how far-reaching what we do here matters, and so I think it's been kind of neat to be a part of that and neat to see that, we're all playing a small part, but it really has large effects.
What are those effects economically for the tribe? I mean, are you making money for them? I mean, it's 6 months into operation. I know it might be early to gauge that, but
right.
Does it look like it's going to, does it look like it's going to be a profitable operation?
Yeah, it's looking really good. So we've got certain sort of indicators that we're looking at. We've got kind of break-even points for both our retail volumes, and then, on the back of the house on the slaughter floor, the more custom animals we can get in here, the better. So we're gearing up, and we've only actually had the kill floor going for about 6 weeks. So the plant and the retail space has been open about 6 months, but the actual kill floor side of things has only been open for about 6 weeks. So it's still pretty early. It's premature. Things look good, and I reported to BF&J yesterday, and I was optimistic, but I wanted to just be open and honest that we really don't have a lot of data to go off of yet because we have only been open for 6 months. So trends can be a tricky thing to communicate, and so I'm hesitant at this point to say it's going to set the world on fire. But things do look really good right now, and as long as we can keep kind of growing and building capacity at the same rate that we are, I think we'll be in good shape.
What was the reaction then from the committee, BF&J, and the council, and I guess the administration? What are they telling you about what they see?
Everyone's been really supportive. I think we all knew that it was a big step. Everybody went in kind of knowing that if there's no givens, there's nothing easy, or these would be a dime a dozen. The fact is that these plants were largely put out of business by the Big Four, and just by the way the food system was set up, it really was an economies of scale type thing where little plants like this, a lot of times are family-owned businesses, and they probably get by just fine, but you wouldn't consider them an economic driver, in a lot of areas. So now we're doing things a little bit differently. We've got some commercial partners that are interested in using this facility to kind of co-pack and grow their own businesses, and so it's been interesting because a lot of those types of entities got kicked out of their plants when COVID hit because everybody was just trying to survive. And so now that we have this sort of renewed opportunity with a lot more of these, I call it a lot more of these regional type food plants, there's a lot more opportunity for plants like us now, especially with the USDA inspection and all the standards that we have to be held to. Food safety is big for somebody who's shipping their product all across the United States, and so we're able to demonstrate we have a really nice state-of-the-art clean plant with great facilities and great equipment, but being able to somebody to come in and see how clean it is and how well how kind of well oiled it appears to be, and that everything seems to be going okay, and that's well and good, but without the backing of the federal standards and the testing and stuff, there's a lot that could miss the eye that won't miss a bacterial test, and so having that peace of mind as a commercial entity saying, hey, we want to use you guys, having that peace of mind that we're going to be federally inspected goes a long way with them, because we have the recall plans and all that stuff that we have to develop as part of that inspection. And so, like I said, I think everybody's optimistic. We're pleased with where it's at right now, but the nation's supportive and knows that it's going to take a lift in the first couple of years to kind of get us to that point where we can really take off. And so, like I said, we're just going to keep working hard and hope that we can do right by that.
One of the components I think is important is the retail space out here. When I walked in the door and I glanced around and saw there was a nice selection of things, but I didn't see like shelves brimming over with stuff. I mean, they're packed in there. Is it a matter of evolution? Do you expect those shelves to be filled, or is it about where you wanted it to be right now?
It's pretty good right now. You want to really minimize your known loss, and especially as we are a brand new plant and brand new retail space, you run the risk if you put too much out there of things going bad. And of course, we don't want to waste any food. And so we're still sort of learning that dance, but I think Grant's done a really good job. The plant manager, he's worked in retail for the last decade or so, and he's worked in the meat industry and been a butcher for over 30 years. So he's real good at kind of watching the way that folks buy and watching their habits and watching, every area, every store, every region has sort of a different selection and different preferences. You may go up north and see cuts of meat that we've never even heard of down here, and vice versa. things that are popular out on the coast, those tri-tips that they were cutting when we were out on the floor, those kind of became, desired by customers on the West Coast, and they're just now sort of making their way here. So being able to pay attention to those trends, the ebbs and flows of a year, as the year goes on, what the customer wants is different. In the wintertime, they're wanting more stew meats and roasts and things to make chili with, and now everybody wants steaks. And so, like I said, there's a delicate balance you play there. You never want customers to come in and not have anything on the shelves, and that's happened a couple times. If we get a big rush, people come in on a Friday afternoon and we've had them, record-breaking Fridays for us, and on Saturday morning you come in and it looks pretty desolate. So we've done a great job. They've done a really good job of sort of, making sure we have a back stock of that. That's one of the benefits of having both fresh and frozen product out there is we try to keep a good back stock of frozen steaks and roasts and things that we know are going to be in high demand at various times. So even if a customer comes in and we just had a run, we had a lady come in the other day and bought like 20 ribeyes. And so, you cut 20 ribeyes on a Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday, and you think that's probably going to be pretty good for the day, on top of what we already have. But she comes in and buys 20, and then you go look at the case and it looks really empty. Those are great things. It's going to happen, but our delicate balance we walk is we don't want to have to throw a bunch of product away because it goes bad. So far, we've done really well in that regard.
So you don't want a lot of inventory laying around. An empty case is good and bad.
Right.
You want to see it
empty. As long as we can refill it. As long as we can get it refilled.
Now, as you sort of adjust to the market, I presume there are going to be a lot of seasonal things, as you mentioned, steaks for barbecues, chili for the wintertime, and then, of course, hunting season, you're going to have a lot of venison come through. Do you really envision a market plan that's going to try and take advantage of that? I know you got a wonderful sign out here, but are you going to pick that up like TV or newspaper advertisement, special events or something like that to kind of boost the image?
Yeah, and we talked about that. Of course, we have PR, and we have a lot of levers we can pull just as a government entity, and we've got our Facebook page. And I don't want to say that we're not advertising right now, but right now we're trying to be careful with what we do, just because, like I said, we're a new plant. We've only been open 6 months, and on some days that seems like forever, but on other days I have to remember that we're a baby in terms of our lifespan in the retail world, and so we've got a good team in place and we've got great customers, but we never want to just put so much out there that, again, a customer comes in and we have nothing that we're advertising for. So we've run a few specials. We did some holiday hams over both Thanksgiving and Christmas. We did hams, and they did really, really well. Bacon's something that we struggle to keep on the shelves just because it's such a good product and everybody wants to buy it. And then there are a few things that we're starting to kind of play with. We've got a dry aging room in the back that's pretty state of the art, and so we're playing with some longer dry aging times, which is a little bit higher quality steak. So we're bringing in some prime stuff, which is more expensive to buy, and then through the aging process you're losing a little bit of it. We've run a few different specials on different types of sausages. So we had some bison brats, and then we had a kind of a spring sale that we advertised, but not real hard. We brought in a ton of product and made just a whole variety of different sausages: bratwurst, smoked sausages, hot links, all those different types of things that got people kind of excited, gets them to coming in. So yeah, I would anticipate that in the future, as we sort of get ahead, we're gonna really start kind of putting ourselves out there. Like I said, we've got a lot of partners that are ready to work with us when we're ready. It's just kind of one of those things where we don't ever want to overpromise and underdeliver. So kind of my personal approach, and as we've gone through this thing, has sort of been to crawl, walk, run. I think the anticipation and the potential of something like this is incredible, and I just don't ever want to make get too gung ho and make a mistake to where we overexert ourselves and can't fulfill any of these obligations. And so we're getting better at that. We're getting caught up to the point now where it's looking like we can start exploring some of those third-party commercial type entities and really expand our enterprise. But again, I just want to make sure that we can do what we say we can do.
Okay, what have we got in front of us here?
So these are just pork steaks. They're out of the shoulder. Still got this little blade bone in them. So basically, this customer brings a hog and they give us a cut sheet, how they want it cut up. So some of them will take this shoulder and do it like a roast. If you've had pulled pork or a pork butt, they call it a butt, but it's out of the shoulder. So in this case, the customer just wanted to cut into pork steaks, so that's what they did here. And
struck by the feeling of cleanliness and shiny equipment. They look extremely clean. I presume these are federal standards that you have to adhere to?
Yes. So all of the equipment has to be stainless, or of course these poly cutting boards and stuff. But basically everything is built with bacteria and pathogenic work in mind. So they're all built to where they don't have a lot of crevices. It's a real shiny surface. It doesn't rust, and it handles that all those cleaning solutions and chemicals. It handles those really well. So you won't get a lot of corrosion. You don't have to worry about things getting into your product that would be unsavory or even just discoloration because the way they build all these machines. And so yeah, we have a third party sanitation company that comes in and they clean everything to USDA specs. USDA's been in here several times already, and of course it's a new facility. It looks great, but when you see what we do every day and how much meat and stuff there is laying around on the tables and the packaging equipment, the fact that it still looks like this after 6 months of day in, day out work, it says a lot about our team. They do a good job every day picking up all these little bits and pieces that fall and making sure to wipe everything down. We do a pre-operation. It's called a pre-operation inspection. So we come in the morning before we start, put the shop back together. All the equipment that we take down, we tear down to have it clean. So we get all the innards, all the saw blades, and all the rotors, and all the guards. Everything gets sanitized every night. And then we come back in the morning. We have what's called pre-op, which is where we would walk through, and when USDA's here full-time every day, they'll walk through and they'll take samples and they'll swap things. But we walk through every morning and make sure there's nothing we can see, nothing that didn't get washed, and everything's put back together, not only cleanly but safely as well.
Now I see, I don't know how to describe it, but this is a drain here in the floor.
Yeah, so we've got floor drains running all the way down, and this is standard pretty well in all the rooms in the facility that require washdown. We have these long floor drains, and that does a couple things. It helps with the flow, so we're not worried about just one or two singular drains in the plant. Pretty much anywhere from this facility, if there's water, it's going to go ahead and drain on out, and that helps with just day-to-day maintenance, but also your cleaning crews not worrying about having to push water to a certain area. At the ends of both of the drains where it goes into the plumbing, there's a filter. It's basically a big metal mesh filter, and it catches any solids or any fats or any hair or anything like that that may go into the drain, so none of that goes through. Of course, you're going to have some that goes through, so there's several of those throughout the facility, and before it gets to the outside of the plant, which is right back here, there's another lift station and a grease trap, like you would see at a restaurant. It collects more solids, and then there's a settling tank out in the back. It's a simple way to put it. It's essentially a big fancy settling tank that any solids that do happen to go through all the systems stay there. There's a big chopper, and they go down to the bottom before only water goes out to the lagoon system.
Okay, and there is the lagoon out back?
Yes, yeah. So we have the wastewater treatment facility. It's out back. Like I said, we have it's all up to spec, and all the engineers have done all their figuring on that and stuff. It's doing a great job. We've got the dissolved O2, so the oxygen levels within those aeration basins are monitored on a day-to-day basis, and I can go show you where it shows us on the computer, making sure that we have that safe and healthy bacteria level in those lagoons. So it's out there. We can see the dissolved O2, make sure those levels are appropriate every day, and if necessary, if we need to make adjustments, which we haven't had to yet, but if we need to, it's as simple as going out there and turning a dial to make sure those aerators are running faster. So so far everything's been working really well.
I understand that lagoon was a matter of concern to some of the local residents. They were worried about some sort of contamination or something like that. Have those questions been settled?
We haven't heard anything from them. No litigation has been filed or anything to my knowledge. We haven't heard anything in quite a while, but we've worked really closely with the EPA. We've either got or are continuing to get any of the information that they need to them. That we've answered all their requests. We've been in contact with them constantly, so we've got all the appropriate permits. The last one we were working on was actually nothing to do with the lagoon. It was an air permit, and we've been working with Region 6 on making sure that we're in
noticed that your crew here has been just extremely busy. Everyone is knocking their portion of the task out. It's like they really know what they're doing. What are they required to have some special training or something before they're employed here?
It's really pretty amazing when you put it that way, because we started about 6 months ago, and the only one that has any experience prior to now is our plant manager, Grant. Everybody else came into this with no background, no experience. We interviewed probably 60 people, and it's just one of those industries that there's not a ton of experienced folks out there. But as you said, in the 6 months we've come, you stand around and everybody knows their job. You stand around and watch them, and they're all working really well. They care a lot, which really helps. A little over half of our folks are citizens. A couple of them are married to their spouse is a Creek citizen. So we have their children are citizens. We all take this meat home to our kids. We all buy our meat here. So it's really neat to see how much pride they take in the product, and how every day they don't put anything out they wouldn't serve to their own children, their own families, and eat themselves. It's kind of funny. We joke all the time that we're our best customers because we see all the product back here. We see how good they are taking care of it. Of course, any of the stuff that we've raised on the ranch, we get to see that all the way through the cycle. So it's really cool to see them take that initiative, take that extra care, go above and beyond, and make sure that it's a product they would give to their own children. So a lot of it's on the job training. We've got a couple that are taking some courses through the college. We've got a couple that are taking some courses online. They're like meat certification type courses. So everybody's really taking some initiative and trying to learn. But it's been a ton of work. They've done a great job.
So if the product wasn't good enough, they wouldn't be taking it home and eating it themselves.
Right, absolutely. So that's one of the cool things about working back here is, any questions you may have had about the food industry are pretty well settled when you're back here, because they see it from when it walks in the plant all the way out until it's on the retail shelf. So, you can kind of rest assured knowing that if the people who work here are eating here, then it's probably a pretty good thing.
Right. I think at the moment, those are pretty much all the questions I wanted to run by. Perfect. Is there something you might want to add here about what we've got?
I just want to brag on the team a little bit. Like you said, this has been a monumental lift, not just for my department, but everybody involved on the policy side, the administrative side, the nation, national council. Everybody's really been great, really supportive. But I just want to take a minute to brag on the team for a minute, because it has been a ton of work. I mean, they make it look easy right now, and Grant, our plant manager, he makes it look really easy. He's done this for 30 years, but every day is brand new. In a brand new facility with brand new equipment, state-of-the-art equipment. Every day, something is a curveball, and so they've done a great job of working through those kinks and getting things worked out and continuing to put good product out on the shelf.
We're going to take a break here, and in our second segment, it looks like we're going to be talking with, repeating a talk we had with Carmen Bruner, a Mvskoke woman who is a wonderful jazz singer and gospel performer, and revisiting her artistic efforts and her music. So please stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio here on The Brew. Okay, we had a wonderful chance to chat with Carmen Bruner about her music and listen to some of her performance, and we thought it was definitely worth sharing again. So please sit back and enjoy some of this chat we had with Carmen Bruner. SJ, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados. Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedges. Welcome to our program here today. We're going to be doing something slightly different from our usual format. We are welcoming into the studio Ms. Carmen Bruner, who is a a jazz gospel singer who has been performing around in our area and has a CD or so out. She'll be sharing her music with me today and a little bit about what's going on. And then later in the program, my boss, Angel Ellis, had recently taken her family on a trip down south to the homelands and was quite touched by what she encountered there. But first of all, let's get started with Ms. Bruner. Thank you. Is it Carmen okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, try that again.
Good morning, Gary.
Okay, it might help if your microphone is
Okay.
turned on. Now, for those folks who aren't familiar with you, let's start off with an introduction. Like, who are you? Where's your family from? Things like that.
Okay, yes. Thank you for having me today. My name is Carmen Bruner, and I am from Bristow, Oklahoma, and that's where I grew up. I was originally born in Tulsa, but moved to Bristow when I was around 4. So that's where I went to school, was reared. I was raised in a musical family. My mother, she plays the piano. She actually plays the piano for our church, Rogers Chapel, which is in Slick. So we've heard music all of our lives growing up. So myself and my 3 brothers, we grew up, and she taught us how to harmonize, and so we would travel around in different areas, local churches, and sing gospel. We were known as the Bruner kids, the Bruner family.
Wonderful. Now, most rural areas have a heavy influence from the church on musical styles in those areas now.
Yes.
Did the gospel material compete with, say, country and western or something else?
Not really.
You blend them together?
We're a multicultural family. So we we were encouraged to enjoy and take all of it in. So that's what makes us so unique. And I'm very grateful for that.
I can imagine, yeah, both of my parents were singers too, and they encouraged me to get into music. But
Nice.
dumb kid here didn't want to practice anything, so he never really took it any further, much to my regret, I have to admit. Now, we have, I think, been thinking about your, quote, career and the kind of material that you share, and it sort of reminded me of some others who, other nationally known international singers who had started off with their roots in church music, as we used to call it, and then moved on to other more popular styles and became quite successful like that. Do you ever make any personal comparisons or think about how that happened for those other folks?
Not really. I mean, I enjoy the stories of how other people tend to grow into their musical stylings. I myself, I just, like I said earlier, I'm very grateful of my mother kind of surrounding us with all different types of genres of music. And so, but jazz for me kind of hit me right in the heart. And so we listen to jazz, we listen to rock, we listen to blues, we listen to country, we listen to a lot of gospel. But I would say when I decided to venture into jazz, it was probably in my junior high years, and I had a music teacher, and so he had me to sing a solo, and that solo was New York, New York. And so that's what really got me started, and I just kind of looked into jazz more, and then since we live on a farm, right, and we have cattle and horses, so There was a lady that always would come and teach me how to barrel ride. So she was into jazz, and that was unique. So all the time we would travel together, and she would turn on Georgia Benson. And I tell you, I just, that was it for me. So
Right,
that's when
right.
I decided.
Barrel racer, huh? And get a lot of busted kneecaps.
Oh, most definitely.
Okay. And my parents were similarly inclined. They had a lot of, religious type music. I think about Mahalia Jackson and
Yes.
some of those. And then others like Aretha Franklin or even Donna Summer, who started there in the church
Yes.
and got a good foundation and then moved on to what they wanted to perform.
Right.
Now we're going to share a bit of your work here. I think the first selection I've got pulled up is an old standard that I think everyone has known. This has been copied, covered, thousands of times, and that's
Correct. That's correct.
Summertime.
Yes. Summertime.
Okay. Well, let's take 5 here
Okay.
and share some of that.
Okay. Well,
Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Your daddy's rich and your ma is good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings you're gonna rise up singing. You spread your wings and fly to the sky. Until that morning, nothing can harm you. Your mama and your daddy standing by.
Now, before I get carried away and dedicate the whole show to that one too, we wanted to ask you a few things about the selection. Now, that Summertime comes from a Broadway musical, is that correct?
that is correct. It was
Porgy and Bess.
Porgy and Bess.
Right.
That's right.
That's how old I am, folks.
Yes, that's an excellent musical. It was written by the Gershwin brothers.
And just off the top of your head, how many other artists do you think have covered that?
I would say probably at least 1,000.
All kinds of different musical styles, and I think probably the last one I heard was Janis Joplin doing it.
Oh, wow.
And that raw emotional voice of hers, and,
Yes.
how she reached, and then you hear other more slick, lounge, easy listening kind of things, and then
Right.
I've heard big bands do it and things like that. Now, how would you describe the type of jazz, quote unquote, that you share? I know there's a lot of different styles and people who have taken different directions. And jazz, I don't think, can be labeled very well. It has so many incarnations.
That is correct.
How would you describe what you do? Now, like I'm thinking, there are just real hardcore jazz guys, take a sax and run up and down the keys, and you think, oh my God, what is that? And it's hard to follow because it doesn't have the musical patterns we're used to. And then you've got real slow and easy ones, like yourself and oh gosh, what's Elvis Costello's wife? What's her name? Gosh, I'll think of it in a minute. But she had a version of it too, of more slow, bluesy kind of really emotional piece.
Okay.
So when you think about this particular song and your performances and things, how would you describe what you do there?
I would say, Gary, well, because there's so many subgenres of jazz, it's all to me very melodic. I enjoy it all. What I do is I would say, a variety of jazz. There is the smooth jazz, like you're talking about. There's also contemporary. There's traditional, like the old style and back in the 20s, and But for me, I like it all, And then you get into the scatting, and just it's all improvisation, and that's why I like jazz.
It's challenging sometimes to listen to if you're not used to it.
Yes.
And you're thinking, what's going on? Why can't they, finish that bar and
Right.
play something that I know?
Yes.
Others just absolutely love it.
Yes.
And are quite dedicated to that kind of feel. The inspiration for you to expand in this direction. What was that spark?
Again, I would say at the young age when I was exposed to jazz, it just kind of just stuck there. Most people say it's an acquired taste. I say it's kind of like, say that you're listening to opera for the first time. It's either going to grab you because of the emotion that's built in, or you're just not going to like it at all. So that's kind of how it happened for me.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you mentioned opera, I was thinking, yeah, that's pretty much the way I describe it. It's either, you appreciate the abilities and the skills and the gifts that these singers are blessed with.
Absolutely.
And, you hear a Pavarotti or something and just belt out, this incredible aria. And then you hear, the women who control such an incredible vocal range. Can get, way up there in the...
I know it. It's they're amazing.
Yeah, and then the same thing, can drop down into the lower octaves and control it all the way up and down.
Right.
Still sing and remember the lyrics.
Exactly.
How do you do it? You're on stage for an hour singing, and how do you keep it all together?
Yes.
The way they do it amazes me too.
And all the while they're telling that story, and so you're just pulled in by it.
Yeah. Now, as you perform, say a summertime or another one, we'll share. Is there anything that goes through your mind as you sing? You're trying to remember the next stanza, or is it purely an emotional ride?
I would say it is mostly emotional, because you're telling a story, and you want that person to feel that emotion as you're singing it. You want them to get in that place as you're sharing your emotions, your character, the vocals, all of that. So you want them to enjoy the performance.
I'm thinking now the different directions it's gone. Of course, there's also the Broadway versions of many things, what was it? Phantom of the Opera caught my attention there.
Oh, okay.
Emily Rossum. It just knocked me out. Just the ability to reach as far up as she can and then bring it back down.
Yes.
Not miss a beat.
I know.
Keep it completely clear and solid. How would you describe the ability to do that? I mean, what makes it work for you, I guess, is maybe what I'm asking.
Well, you definitely have to have the desire to hold your gift. You have to expand it with education and plenty of vocal exercises. It just takes practice, really, in order to have that control, so you can make those beautiful sounds.
Yeah, I'm thinking, there's the diaphragm and
Most
breathing.
definitely. And you're right. You're correct. It's all about breathing. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, even on radio, occasionally. Or we have another piece here that we're going to share with you, a piece called Fragile. Why don't you tell me about that real quick?
Okay, Fragile, for me, when I first heard it, Gary. It was actually written by Sting in 1988. It was written because of a tragedy that happened a year before. It was about a young engineer that went into the Peace Corps. His name was Ben Linder, and when he was sent to Nicaragua to build hydroplanes for the villages that were too poor to have water. So that's what his purpose was there for, and it was a tragedy because he was shot down and murdered by Contra rebels, and of course, all of that's in the politics, which I don't get into. But his purpose to reach for, because he had it in his heart to go abroad and help people. That's really what the whole song is about. And so when Sting is writing this song about him, when he's mentioning when flesh and steel are one, and that is how he was shot down. But it touched my heart, and it was always a song I wanted to cover. So I'm just glad I had the opportunity to do that.
Blood will flow when flesh and steel are one, drying in the color of the evening sun. Tomorrow's rain will wash the stains away, but something in our minds will always stay. Perhaps this final act was meant to clinch a lifetime argument. Nothing comes from violence, and nothing ever could. For all those born beneath an angry star, lest we forget how fragile we are. On and on the rain will fall, like tears from a star, like tears from a star. On and on the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are. On and on.
Little fancy crossfade there. The background that you come from, is very strong in Mvskoke culture.
Yes, sir.
And where does that fit into your life, and perhaps how does it affect your music?
It comes in where I realize that because I am multicultural, and so it allows me to understand more of my native people, and also it allows me to do to be very versatile, actually. So there's, like I said, because we grew up that way with so many different genres of music, that's what's instilled inside of me. So it kind of matches up in my DNA. I have always admired Native American people. And of course, being so young, before I even got into jazz, I really didn't know much about that. We weren't members of Creek Nation, but we lived by the creek, sort of thing. But I'm very proud, and I feel that my purpose, along with my music, maybe I can make a difference somewhere. Music is so healing in so many ways, and we need that, especially in our culture. We have different things that we have to deal with, but with music, sometimes it allows us to make our day a little easier, or make that struggle a little easier.
Well, speaking of struggles, I always do this other side of the coin thing. And did your choices plural here, ever present any challenge, like either from Mvskoke people or the world in general, or perhaps parishioners who thought maybe you might not want to look at that? It wasn't, a pure gospel kind of thing. Did that ever pop up in any form or anything like that?
It pops up every day. It's actually a part of my life. Being a minority, you have to always try to present yourself according to how we're made. And I always like to reference, going back to the Bible, we are wonderfully made. So we always have to remember that every time we come up against things that, or people or situations that don't welcome us. So we try to overcome every day.
Right, okay. Let's go back again to performing and being on stage. I flirted briefly with the rock and roll band when I was a kid.
Okay.
Just had a wonderful time, when your band's really cooking and
Yes.
you know the thing is just right.
Mm-hmm.
And you check it with your audience and they're out there dancing and getting sweaty and having a good time. What's that? How does that show up for you, like when you're on stage singing?
It's like it's the same. It's the same type of feeling. It's like you're in the zone of it all, and you're pouring yourself and your soul into what you're trying to portray or bring out to someone else. So that's really what it is for me. So it's the same.
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's share a little bit more of this, and we'll just sit back and enjoy for a second.
Thank you.
Like tears from a star, like tears from a star. On and on the rain will say how fragile we are, how fragile we are. Will flow when flesh and steel are one, drying in the colors of the evening sun. Tomorrow's rain will wash the stains away, but something in our minds will always stay.
When you hear yourself like that again, does something come to mind, or you think, "Oh, I should have done this, or hit that note, or paused a little second"? I mean, do you ever become your own critic?
All the time, all the time. We are our own worst critic. But the key thing is not to overthink what you're trying to create, and just let it come from the heart.
Right. Now, you've been working at this for how long now?
Well, I've been singing, of course, since I was 6. But I actually got the opportunity, just here recently, about maybe a couple of years ago. And, well, I take that back, maybe 4 years ago. And prior to that, that's when some of the songs that I had written that I had released today, I've written them about 25 years ago in my 20s. And so I just kind of, I'll just say it wasn't the right time.
Sure.
So everything's put on the shelf, life happens. But when God presented that opportunity to me a few years back, I was gung-ho, and just grateful. So when I hear myself, that's just, it's like, sometimes I just say, I have no regrets, because it comes out as it comes out.
Do you think God likes jazz?
Most definitely.
Most definitely.
That's right.
And what was a song years ago? It said, Heaven's got one, quote, hell, unquote, of a band. Renault, these people did.
Yes.
Now, the reason I asked that last question was, are you performing either locally or nationally, or do you have any recording sessions coming up?
Not too long ago, I did perform at the Fayetteville Jazz Festival. That was back in the end of April. I don't have anything pending as of yet, but some things are coming in as we speak. So I'm excited. I do have an EP out, and it's entitled Carmen Bruner, and you can find that on all digital platforms.
Wonderful. That's good that it's there. Then if it takes off, you think you'll spend a lot of time doing it, dedicated, or would that compete with your own private life?
I hope so. I'm looking for that to happen.
Excuse me there, and
but,
paycheck or two, yeah.
But it's okay. I think I can find a way to balance it all.
Okay, well, I tell you what, let's, I'm just blown away by this music, so let's see if we can't fit a little bit more in.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we hope you enjoyed that little chat we had with Carmen Bruner and that amazing music that she has. I understand she did a concert not too long ago in Bristol, and hope that many of you were able to check that out. Who knows, maybe other people at our own festival will recognize this talent and add it to their program. We would love to hear that kind of thing coming from our own people, shared at our own festival. So, we'll mention it to them, see what happens. Let me think. That's about it. We are making plans in a not-too-distant future. We, again, probably will be doing a live show from the festival on the Friday there. And who knows, maybe you could stop by and say hello, and we'll see what happens then. Until then, this is Gary Fife saying Mado Mabo Hedget Scott. Appreciate you. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.